So once again, thank you everyone for attending today's PreSales Collective virtual webinar, the first one of this year to my knowledge. We truly appreciate you all listening in on a Thursday afternoon, one day closer to the weekend, so yes. And we're extremely excited, are eager to get started. Planning this has been a great joy for me. And I do want to thank Dave as well. Now, before I go on and start this webinar, I do want to introduce a little bit about me. I'm your host for today, and I thought it would be a really good idea for you to just know a little bit about me. Who is exactly hosting today's event? Well, my name is Sharmyn Kayani, and I'm currently a solution engineer, pre-sales at VMware. I started as a graduate at the start of 2020. That was when everything was virtual. COVID had just hit. I don't want to bring up any bad memories, guys, but just want to embrace that, that was when we all went all online, and I have made it. So it's just a true testament for the company and just how much I've enjoyed it as well. I've recently got promoted to solution engineer. So yay, 3 years down. And that's my biggest achievement, which I'm really proud of. So yay. But pre-sales has been incredible for me. I'm so grateful for the knowledge it's given me, the people I've been met along the way, and I do truly endorse pre-sales as a career move for everyone out there. I really do. Apart from that, I enjoy watching movies, and I'm actually planning a holiday to Japan and Thailand in November. Nothing set in stone, but if you have any ideas, please send them my way. I'll really appreciate it. It's a lot more nerve-wracking planning the holiday than it is just thinking of it. Now, in terms of why I joined PreSales Collective, just a little bit about why and why you should consider it as well. Well, one, I get to meet a great community of pre-sales engineers out there. I get to understand why they chose that career pathway, and I get to learn from them. I get to learn from their experiences. They guide me through their experiences as well. I get to attend constant events on multiple different topics out there as well. A lot of topics relevant to where I am right now and relevant to where I want to be or what's relevant in the market as well. So it's constantly giving me a source of knowledge away from my work. And it's a great career progression pathway as well. Meeting other pre-sales engineers allows me to see where they are. What's my career pathway going to look like? Where I'm really nervous about the next steps at times, it gives me clarity, gives me comfort in knowing that where someone was a graduate one day is a director the next. Where someone was a graduate one day and pre-sales is able to be, enterprise architect one day. So it gives you clarity in what's next. Apart from that, that's me as Sharmyn Kayani, your host today. Now what I'll do is I'll pass it on to our wonderful my co-host today, which is Dave Santalis. He is a principal enterprise architect at Workday, and I would love if you would just briefly introduce himself to all of you here.
Thanks, Sharmyn. So firstly, before I do that, I'm going to introduce PreSales Collective in case you don't know essentially about what we're about. We are this kind of association of 8,000 pre-sales professionals global. What that means is that there's a lot of interaction on the Slack. So we do have a Slack channel. Everybody talks about their ideas and jobs get posted and ways to get into certain companies. But also PreSales Collective has an offshoot called PreSales Academy, where you can also sign up for some niche training. Now, I'll probably get shot if I don't mention the vision statement. So we are on a mission to elevate the role of pre-sales in organizations worldwide. We aim to provide pre-sales professionals with the resources, knowledge, network, and mentorship to develop long, impactful careers in pre-sales. Our vision is to create a global community of professionals who have a passion for pre-sales, a place where individuals in a pre-sales role or anyone who aspires to be will be supported in their professional development. So as Sharmyn mentioned, I'm Dave Santalis. I work for Workday. I am an enterprise architect there. I do a lot of pre-sales. As such, I've been in pre-sales since I got out of university back in 2001, so absolutely showing my age, but I've got something like 22 years experience in pre-sales. I've eat, breathe, and lived it. As such, I've been an ambassador for 2 years, and we've put together multiple webinars, such as this one, as well as face-to-face meetups. And there's some pretty big ones coming, such as Sydney coming up soon. And we also have a meetup happening in Singapore. And that's part of the evolution. That's a pre-sales manager meetup that's coming up. And that's how we listen to our people, so yourselves, about what you're looking for. And we look to try to execute on that. Essentially, why did I join PreSales Collective? Essentially, it's to help others either transition into the role or to help some junior pre-sales people navigate some complexities in the pre-sales role to be able to be fulfilling in the way they operate. So absolutely sign up for PreSales Collective. It's presalescollective.com. It's pretty simple to do. I would love to hear from you and would love to see you on the Slack. So thanks again for coming to the webinar. And Sharmyn, I'll hand over back to you.
Thank you so much, David. Well, today's topic, what is it? It's all about self-improvement here. And as a pre-sales engineer, this means, what self-improvement means to me is continuously developing my skills. It's continuously looking at ways to grow my knowledge and grow myself. And what I hope for through this journey is being a better me. When it comes to my job, when it comes to the way I'm with my clients, when it comes to the projects I'm working on, and when it comes to my career pathway as well. So that's what self-improvement is. Now, to discuss this topic, I thought my knowledge alone wouldn't suffice, considering it's only been 3 years. So what I thought best was to introduce 3 wonderful panelists with me. I don't believe I'll do justice to their incredible tenure. So what I would love to do is ask each one of them to come off mute and actually introduce themselves. Will, let's get started with you first.
Great, thanks, Sharmyn. My name is Will Mansfield. I work at VMware. I'm a Director of Solution Engineering at VMware. I have the wonderful privilege of working very, very closely with Sharmyn in the team. I've been with VMware for the 11 years in November and done a plethora of different roles in that time at VMware. Actually, prior to VMware, I did a small stint at an architecture firm as a sysadmin and then looking after a service desk team as well as moving a bit into architecture. But prior to that, I was actually a mechanic for 5 years. So that I really had a bit of a change in career, but still very passionate about cars and still tinker with cars almost every weekend. Outside of that, I have a 2-year-old daughter and also expecting another girl later this year, which is very, very exciting. So yeah, very much love the family. And yes, thanks Sharmyn, that's me.
Perfect, Will. Rashika, you're next.
Thank you, Sharmyn. Well, that's an inspiring story on how you moved from other career to pre-sales. So good to hear about that. Also, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruchika. I'm leading APAC enablement for pre-sales at Workday. If you don't know Workday, Workday is a SaaS company, and we provide HR and finance management systems. It's based out of California, but we have been operating in APAC region for almost 10 years. Before this, I was leading enablement for pre-sales and consultant at Red Hat. A bit of a background about me, I was born in India, but then I went to US to pursue my master's in computer engineering. And then I started working in different capacity as a software engineer, technical consultant in US. But then 8 years ago, I moved to Singapore, and it's been home for us since then. And I've worked across various digital marketing, SaaS, and telecom spaces here. My hobby currently is tennis and running. If you're in Singapore, happy to play with you some tennis shots. I'm married to my husband for 14 years now, and I have a 9-year-old son and a 10-month-old puppy. If you're a bark, so apologies for that now, as I'm the only one in the house. So he's just a puppy, so you'll get that noise. I enjoy pre-sales role because I love problem solving. We are always working with unique customer challenges, and it's our job to design innovative solutions to address them. So happy to be here and share my insights with you all.
Thank you, Rashika. Beautiful introduction to yourself. Kylie, last but not least, please introduce yourself.
Hi team, I'm Kylie. I'm also from Workday, and similar to Will and Ruchika, I didn't have a direct path to pre-sales. So I haven't been living and breathing it for over 20 years like Dave. I'm probably somewhere between you, Sharmyn, and Dave, with just coming up to 7 years in the pre-sales space, but always in HCM. So my career early days was in financial intelligence, but that's a story I might share with some people over a drink. But in terms of HCM space, it's 20 plus years for me in that space. And I've done everything from being in a support role to deploying software, and then the past 7 years in pre-sales. And like you, Rishika, I love solving problems and telling people what they need to do. It's so much fun to work through those problems and present back potential solutions, but not have to be the one that makes those dreams come true, which is what it used to be when I was a deployment consultant. Everyone else has talked about some things that they do outside of the workspace. So I will share with you a couple of things that I like to do, one of which is I'm a Sydney Swans fan. So I am super excited that they haven't lost every round this season so far, which is good. I was a bit worried that they were going to go off the boil there. And I also enjoy ballroom and Latin dancing. So I do a little bit of tap dancing in front of prospects and customers, but I also do throw some shapes on the dance floor as well in my off time.
I love it, Kylie. So definitely, team, we have 3 extremely overachievers with us. Extremely excited to get started. Now, Rishika, I'll start with you. SE enablement is something I wasn't always across, right? At VMware, we have it as well, but it's a new concept. And I truly believe it's been brought forward because the rate of change, the rate of learning is accelerating. We're talking about a product and it's being constantly worked on at the same time. So the pace of change is quite rapid. What are the different ways that you urge or motivate pre-sales engineers to learn at work while you're enabling them?
So, so you do have the standard learning management system that is implemented within your firm generally. So Workday is one of them, Talent, LMS. And then there are certain edtech platforms like Udemy, Coursera. They have good courses too now. But what's important, as Sharmyn initially mentioned, that pre-sale is a continuous development role, right? So to me, having the right coach is really important. So a coach is someone who can give you the personalized learning and understand your individual needs. But many a times we're a bit hesitant, and as a new professional, to ask for help. And I was the same back in the days, right? But it's okay to reach out, and you'll be surprised that there's so many people who would like to coach you. So in my opinion, coaching is one of the best way to learn apart from the general courses or the learnings that you have. However, the tricky part is finding the right coach. And I strongly recommend you all to look for coaches for specific reasons. It could be someone who can help elevate your technical skills or soft skills, or even help you navigate within the organization. So for example, Will or any other leaders that you can go to, and even experienced and tenured people like Kylie and others, right, in your organization, they'll be able to coach you and guide you as they are in the trenches. They have learned themselves. They know what's the pace around in the pre-sale world, right? So that's where I see that's so coaching is the best way to learn. And one last thing I want to comment here is that a coach should have a vested interest in you as well. So finding that right coach is really important, as they should be able to understand what you want to do, what's your vision, where do you want to be in 5 years, so that they can help you and champion you to lead that development journey and plan with you. So with that, Sharmyn, so that's what I think is going to be important thing.
I completely agree. I think people don't understand how important having a coach or a mentor is. And will someone coming to you, someone who is in a leadership role where Rishika Bradley pointed out, people look to, right, for guidance, what are some of the biggest challenges, in your opinion, that pre-sales managers face today?
Yeah, I think it's the in the way in which we work these days, obviously being a hybrid work type agreement that we mostly all kind of work within. It's fantastic in the way of, I think, driving more inclusive in the way in that people can have more flexibility around how they work, where they work. If people do suffer from whether it's visible or invisible disabilities, they can create an environment at home that is conducive to being able to work at their best by obviously creating that environment suitably so, whereas in some workplaces that isn't the case. So I think from that scenario, it's fantastic. Where I see there can be challenges is obviously just that element of making sure that everyone has a voice. So I do find that when we join Zooms and have team calls on Zooms and so forth, people may be somewhat more less inclined to speak up because what happens is you end up just all talking over each other, and you might be just that little bit more inclined to go, oh, you know what, I'll take that conversation offline and have a one-on-one with that person individually versus just trying to make my point now in front of 6, 10, 20 other people on a Zoom. The problem with that is then there's 10 other people that would also be really interested in hearing that. And that little bit of information is just gone off in a one-on-one when you desperately try to connect with someone over the phone. So I think that's tough in terms of building an inclusive culture. And I do think inadvertently people can kind of work in their own little bubble and not by design, but it just kind of happens that way, and potentially miss out on those opportunities where you can go out for lunch with the team or discuss something, and then they hear about it secondhand. And I think that just kind of, you might feel, oh, I missed that opportunity. So I think it's fantastic in terms of the flexibility that it provides and opportunities, I think, for people really to feel comfortable in terms of the place in which they work. But also I think for managers, there's that element of, being concerned about not having everyone feel as included as they may want to be, and being unaware of that.
Thank you, Will. Kylie, someone who's in the midst of, Rishika's enablement, Will's management style, what recommended learning has had a significant impact on you, and what made you more effective on your role?
Sorry, Kylie, you're on mute.
I know my mouse just gave up the ghost there. I started speaking, realized I was on mute. Apologies, team. I was just going to say, early in my transition to pre-sales, where obviously everything goes according to plan, there's never a technical hitch, was attending a demo to win. And it's an intensive couple of days program, and it really helped me to change my mindset and my approach to presenting the software from a deployment mode into a pre-sales mode as well. And it's a lot more about storytelling in there. So I found that really key to helping me transition into pre-sales. And then, of course, I have to give Ruchika a plug and say anything that Ruchika's team in the enablement within Workday is valuable. But I think for getting that balance really between deeper product knowledge and the soft skills. So each person's journey is slightly different. We all have strengths and areas of development that differ, but I would suggest make sure you get that balance right between deep knowledge of your product and being able to combine that with the soft skills that you need to be an effective pre-sales consultant, engineer, sorry.
I completely agree. I think finding that balance is quite hard. Look, especially when you come new to that field, it's understanding, communicating with the right people as well. In understanding that, Ruchika, what are some of the most common mistakes, in your opinion, that pre-sales engineers make that really inhibit their growth at times? Like, you would have seen a lot of them come and go in this role. What do you see in your opinion?
That's a good question. So in my opinion, what I've seen as the biggest challenge as a pre-sales role is that as we are the first technical advisors to the customers, we have so much responsibility to build that perceptions on our technical capabilities as a product company. If the customer is convinced at that stage, it's like 80% of the sales work is done, right? Just giving a hypothetical number. But then generally, that's where I see the biggest pre-sales engineer, they need to be in a continuous development mode, right? You need to have that learning mindset. You need to look ahead, what's latest, what's happening in the industry. So that's really where I see the biggest challenge and where some people give up in their growth capability, is that you need to be in a learning mode. And that's where, as Kylie mentioned, right, the enablement team in your company really becomes a key. We are the experts who should understand the company strategy and where the business and industry is heading, so that I can provide that enablement journey and the trainings plans ahead of time, so that Kylie, David, and other solution engineers or consultants, they are able to build their learning growth over the quarters. So to me, I think that's really important, and where we need to have a growth mindset and a learning.
Well, I'm just going to pass it over to you. You know, in what Rishika said, do you agree, or would you want to add on, you know, to some of the common mistakes that pre-sales engineers make? Just want your opinion on this as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to build a culture of understanding that you know, mistakes are going to happen, and mistakes are absolutely acceptable, right? It's knowing the difference of obviously an unacceptable mistake and an acceptable mistake, but what's most important is maximizing that mistake. So, you know, when you fail well, and reflect on why you failed, and then seek opinions and reflect on what you can do differently next time to learn from it, really. And I think, you know, it's incredibly important to drive that culture of vulnerability, and to really learn to love mistakes, to embrace them, and to absolutely maximize them, and then seek others' opinions on terms of what you can do differently to continue to improve. I think the biggest mistake that people make, pardon the pun, is not maximizing the mistake that they've made, and just kind of continuing on and going, oh, hopefully that doesn't happen again. Let's forget about that. That was horrible, and just continue as they were.
I'm just going to add into that and say I completely agree with both Will and Rishika in this. I also believe that when you start off, you want to prove yourself. You get a little bit nervous about making mistakes and wanting to have all the answers all the time as well, which is impossible, because there's a lot of knowledge out there, and in companies that are growing, it's difficult. Thank you, Will and Rishika. Next one, I'm going to take a break from my own questions and actually look at the Q&A. So Kylie, this is specifically for you. It's actually mentioned that in the question. How did you improve your storytelling skills when shifting from implementing the dream to selling the dream?
So a couple of things that I had to do, and one of those was to bring that level of conversation up. I knew the product inside and out, but that's not the purpose of a pre-sales engagement. It's not to imbue that same level of detailed knowledge, and you have to tell an end-to-end story. Make it compelling. So I had a bit of a journey to get there, because my natural inclination was to help people understand everything underneath what I was showing them, and I'd lose them in the detail. And thinking about losing the detail, Sharmyn, do you think I've answered that question, or do you need a little bit more?
Answered it beautifully. Thank you, Kylie. In keeping in mind storytelling, Rishika, when you're thinking of enablement, do you focus on storytelling at all? And if you do, what guide do you follow when enabling on storytelling?
So, Sharmyn, so to me, as a pre-sales, as Kylie mentioned, right, storytelling, it should be in your DNA. You should be able to convince the customers and captivate the audience to grab their attention. So, and the storytelling comes through experience, through industry knowledge, through technical skills. So at Workday and in my previous company, we do invest a lot in building these soft skills. As a sales, it's a team sport, and you need to be able to tell the stories to convince the customer, yes, Mr. Customer, we understand your problem, and here's the right solutions that is going to help you to overcome that challenges. And you can focus on your day-to-day work than the technical challenges you see in your products or existing implementation. However, what I see is the way we build storytelling is it's not a one step that we do an enablement and it's done. It comes through practice, right? Theory is one part of learning. You need to first understand the framework, the concept of building the storytelling, and then get into the field, shadow a respective tenured person to see how they are captivating the audience with their stories that they have learned in the field. And the one last point I want to make is that with the storytelling, you need to be able to bring that credibility and the authenticity in your conversations with the customer to convince them, yes, we understand your problem and we will come up with the right solutions that is unique to you and provide that support during the implementation throughout the life cycle that we are with the customer.
Thank you so much, Rishika. Wonderfully answered. Will, coming to you, personal development plans are starting to become quite ingrained and popular with all companies. Do you implement that as a measure of success for your, for the individuals in your team? And how important is it to you to track that success?
Yeah, I think measuring, I guess the success of an SE is definitely challenging. I've only ever worked at VMware, so that's all I've really seen. However, I've worked with a lot of solution engineering managers over the years at my time at VMware, so I've seen their perspectives, and obviously they've come from other vendor organizations. And I'll be honest, I still haven't seen anything that's really consistent across IT vendor organizations. I think, professional development plans, individual development plans, whatever you want to call them, are very important for, first and foremost, the individual. It's a great way to track all the successes that you have. It's a great way to quickly populate your CV or resume. When you're looking at all the successes and wins that you've had, it's there, it's available to you. And it's also there to really help you kind of understand what more would you like to achieve based off the goals that you want to get to, right? So what are the outcomes that you've delivered so far, and how do they align to the goals that you're trying to achieve? So I think it's good from that perspective to step out and look down at yourself as a machine within the machine, and what do you need to, you're the designer, what do you need to course correct to achieve those goals? I think it's a fantastic use for that. In terms of coming back to the measurement side of things, frankly, I see it as a bit more of looking at how SEs are technically influencing an opportunity and making sure that we are across it and giving sound advice to our clients, and then also ensuring consumption. Right? So it's one piece leading up to building a strategic partnership with a client, and the next piece then is ensuring that they are successfully consuming that technology. And I think measurements aligned to that for an SE work well in terms of looking at their success, but there's so many other factors I think that play a part in the success of an SE.
Well, whose responsibility is to keep track of that personal development plan? Because you mentioned it's not consistent, there's a lot of change. What would you say is a way that maybe the pre-sales engineer can be consistent?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think definitely your development plan is yours to own and to control, but there might be things that you're unaware of, so blind spots. And in the spirit of transparency, which I think is incredibly important for all organizations to embody as much as possible, I think your manager, your leader should be providing feedback in terms of the areas that you may not be aware of that are your weak spots, or feedback coming from others in the organization to help feed into that development plan. But absolutely, I think it's on the individual to build that out, aligned to what they enjoy doing, what they don't enjoy doing, understanding as they go along their career areas that they might want to pivot into. And then, of course, based off what their leader is seeing, feeding into that to make sure that we can obviously bridge those gaps. But I think first and foremost, it is absolutely the individual's responsibility to build and to grow that plan with obviously the leader's involvement.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Will. Understanding the development plan helps you track success, allows you for consumption, helps you move forward. Kylie, being in the role itself, do you track your success, or how do you track that? What is some guidance you would give to a lot of the pre-sales engineers who want to have, log of the success so far or development?
Okay, yeah, so on development, there's a couple of ways that you can do that, and hopefully you have a good software solution for your people management to help you capture those moments as well. Very lucky to work for a software vendor that happens to do that. So it's very simple for us to do. I think as Will was saying, is you have a plan, and what you might want to do there is to articulate and get the support of your manager on the contributions that you want to make and the connections that you want to make in the upcoming period. So then it's a matter of revisiting those at the end of perhaps each quarter. Do you have a monthly check-in? And then also a way against your profile that could be either publicly available, not publicly available to the whole world, within your organization, to put those milestones in. Were you a significant contributor to a big win at your organization? Have you recently had an internal certification? Have you been the recipient of an award internally as well? So really helping you to capture that in a centralized way. I actually just use our software. Oh, Sharmyn, you're on mute now. You've got my problem.
The mute button is playing on all of us, and it talks to the incredible movement of Zoom and online meetings. Thanks, thanks to Kylie. Wonderfully answered. Rishika, over to you now. What are the most important skills, in your opinion, that pre-sales engineer of today needs to have?
That's a very tricky and important question. So there's quite several skills that are important, but what I would like to highlight is the industry you belong to helps determine the skills you need as a pre-sales, and largely because it's the differing customers' expectation. In some industries, for example, if your main stakeholder is CTO or an engineers, you need to have the strong understanding of the technology and how your product is going to integrate with the whole ecosystem. Whereas on the other hand, if your industry primary stakeholders are the leaders of marketing, HR, or finance, then you need to be able to understand the domain you are in. You should be able to understand what are their unique challenges, what's the industry's trend in that domain. So while both are important, the level of expertise and the skill sets required can vary significantly depending on the industry. The second skill I would like to highlight as a most successful pre-sales leaders that I have seen is business acumen. So they're not only technical experts in their field, but they also possess an in-depth comprehension of the way the business works. When we say business, it's twofold. One is understanding the customers, their challenges, domain, their end users, and the strategy and the vision they are moving to. Additionally, it also involves identifying the problems that your products is solving. What are your strengths and even the weaknesses? You should be aware of the whole business that your product is helping to solve the challenge in. So at the end of the day, a lot of successful pre-sales discussions they're not just about technical capability, but how you are helping solve those unique set of problems that the customers are facing. So in my opinion, I think these two skills really help you stand out in your pre-sales role.
Kylie, do you want to add anything into what Rishika just mentioned as well?
I
Sorry,
should
Kylie.
just not go on mute anymore and just be quiet. So for me, absolutely, the three skills that I would see are active listening, storytelling, and research. And that does align a lot with what Ruchika said. And if I break that down a little bit more, with the active listening, I think you should be talking to people and actively thinking about things. Take notes, remember names. You're there to solve problems. And I think, Ruchika, you mentioned that really early on. It's about solving problems, understanding the gaps. And if you're not actively listening, you're going to find that really hard to do. And remember, communication is two-way. And I heard this little saying recently from a colleague, and I am going to steal it and use it as if it's my own. And it is that you are given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I really like that one, and I am going to embrace that. And with the storytelling, I've put some written answers in the Q&A, but just generally it's about breaking things down into consumable chunks, personalizing those interactions as well. So that's where they're remembering the names, actively listening, playing back their business challenges to them. And of course, those things that go along with storytelling is wrapping it up in a really good presentation skills and creating memorable moments for your audience, whether that's the win themes that you are constantly touching upon, or whether it's just a quick tagline, like we might say here, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and people will create that as a memorable moment and it will differentiate you. And that research, Ruchika, you were talking about that in a really lovely way also. Know your product, know where the gaps are, keep an eye on industry trends. What is the competitive intelligence? What are your competitors doing so that you know how to differentiate what you are there in front of that you're proposing? And keep abreast of new technologies, not just those that are competitors of yours, or how is your own product evolving? And what about presentation technologies as well? What's changing in the way of that? I mean, I don't know anyone might be as old as me and remembers the old, oh my gosh, the overhead projectors. And people would write on a piece of sort of plastic and they would write out their notes and they would project that onto the screen, and it had an overhead lamp. Look at us now. We're not even in the same room and we're sharing ideas, and we've got beautiful visuals here as well.
Sharmyn, if I may add to what Kylie said, I
Absolutely.
think she just gave us a good demonstration of how you can build the story, right? So she heard a story from someone else and she's able to put that into her own words. So in terms of storytelling, if you don't have your own story, just pick up from what you learn and create this as your own story. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to convince customers that you understand them with your storytelling.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Kylie, thank you so much, Ruchika. Kylie, I do want to just go back into, I also once got told by someone in this call that, I asked him for advice and he told me, Sham, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. And I remember Will exactly telling me the exact same thing as well. So seems like that word or that sentence gone around.
Very good wisdom.
I love it.
I remember being told that. I think I was 11 years ago. I was helping out with an interview, and the solution engineering director at the time actually said during the interview, which I was like, oh, okay. They said, Will, and obviously we were interviewing someone who was looking to join VMware, and he said, Will, 2 ears, 1 mouth. That was it. And I got a lot of respect for him. He's an absolutely fantastic leader and still a great mentor to me. But yeah, I was like, okay, point taken. And I really thought about that afterwards. So, good advice indeed, Kylie.
Will, it's good that you're off mute because the next one's actually for you. For someone who's on the hiring end of a lot of this, what are some of the skills that a successful pre-sales manager should have in your opinion? To start with, there's a two-part question. So that one we'll start with.
Yeah, I think relationships isn't really a skill as such, but I'm going to say that it's so important to, I think that meaningful work and meaningful relationships is not an optional. It's something that it's programmed into us. It's programmed into our brains. It's something that we crave. And for me, I think that's really important. The ability to truly understand your people, what they like doing, what makes them tick. And with that information, you can really, I think, ensure that they're on the right trajectory and that they're doing a role that they enjoy doing. A few of us here, Kylie mentioned she's done a number of different things, as well as Ruchika and myself. And I think if you've got a manager that can kind of pick up that, actually, I don't know if that person's got the right traits for that role, if they're really enjoying it, and then having a discussion about that and helping them to really uncover maybe a passion or a role that they're unaware of based off not so much their strengths, but just what they love doing. I think that's really important. So I think relationships, knowing your people, is incredibly important. I did speak about the other two, but I'm a big believer of transparency. I think it should be the rare exception when we're not being transparent. You build trust in your team really through by being transparent, and you should expect everyone has an opinion. And if someone does have an opinion, there's no reason why they shouldn't raise that on a call. And that's kind of, really the standard that I think that you want to set. And finally, vulnerability. You would know this, Sharmyn. I'm a big believer of sharing mistakes, being open about mistakes and learning from them, because I think, that's when we are truly ourselves. When we don't have anything to hide, we can be ourselves and we're happy. Right. So I think they're the three things I look for when I'm hiring.
Perfect. And Will, the next question has specifically come for you as well. Once I'm in that role, how can I grow into pre-sales management in the future?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, I feel like I somewhat fell into it. I never saw myself as a leader. I didn't really have a huge passion to be a leader as such. I just loved being an SE and being technical, as Kylie said. I think it was I just loved being technical and getting on the tools. I'm a horrible storyteller. It's something I would love to get better at. So thank you for the tips, Kylie and Ruchika. It's something I really need to work on. So for me, I think a big part of it was I had a fantastic manager at the time, and he saw something in me that I guess I didn't see. It was purely around interpersonal skills. I know it's used a lot, but it was really around those people skills. And he thought that was a strength of mine and something that I really enjoyed doing, talking like I am now, hopefully not for too long. I think for me, so let's get back to the question, Will. I think that one way to get into it would be to really think about what you enjoy doing. If you enjoy talking to people, if you enjoy seeing people succeed, if you're passionate about helping people to grow and just love building culture around you and seeing people succeed, then I think you've got some fantastic traits to be a fantastic people leader. And in terms of getting started, I think it's expressing that want with your leadership within an organization. And then the one way you can do it right now in your role is to start coaching and mentoring people. I think Ruchika mentioned it earlier. That's what we do. We're day coaches every single day, Monday to Friday. We're coaching. So, that's, I think, one way to start being a leader right now and to take control is to reach out and offer help to people. And those that want it and those that want to be successful will gladly accept that help.
Thank you, Will. I definitely do agree with that. I think a lot of the times I have to attest to what Will said in terms of management skills, in terms of growing into that role. I think as part of the personal development plans that we have been discussing, do highlight that. And I think a good personal development plan should include your goals for the future, which is either going more technical or leadership or even pivoting away from that role as well, which is a conversation Will and I constantly have as he's mentoring me as a leader as well. Rishika, I've got a really good question for you, actually. Thomas says, I work in many companies from enterprise to service providers. And what I've realized is that it's very rare to invest in structured pre-sales training, mainly from a soft skills perspective. Now, this is a three-part question, but this is the first part. Is that also your view or conclusion as well?
So Thomas, you're spot on. So the challenge, I'm also facing currently is that even though we have invested in enablement, I don't have that many resources. I wish to provide a personalized experience to my teams here and the stakeholders across the APJ. That said, with the involvement and PSC and other SC leadership, these enablements are becoming huge part of the company's DNA, where the company's leaders are looking at how they can help their team to upskill these soft skills. And the reason is the buyers are changing. They are moving into a direction of digital enablement. The customer engagement is changing. So we need to be able to converse along with the technical aspects, these soft skills to convince them. Again, I'll go back to this on the business acumen to be able to convince them, yes, Mr. Customer, I've worked with several other customers in your industry, and we have helped them solve similar challenges. And that comes to soft skills development. And Will alluded to that as a term as a people skill. So what we are moving as an enablement now is we don't call it as a soft skills now. We're using a term as people skills so that we can help develop these skills in the industry. So Thomas, you're spot on, but I've seen this has improved from the past 2 to 3 years, or at least 5 years. We're getting that in APAC. It's bigger in US and other regions in EMEA, but the things are shortly trickling down into our APAC region. And one thing I've seen is that APAC and Australia is such a diverse region, right? So we definitely need the enablement to help personalize the skills that the team needs. I hope that answered the questions. Sharmyn, long answer to that question, but the trend is changing and it's shifting.
No, it's definitely, and also it's definitely needed. So Rishika, you mentioned, training should be part of the company's DNA. You've also mentioned that there's a recognition, there's an understanding that training is needed because obviously there's a lot more to learn. It's a lot of different people coming from different regions, different track records as well. Do organizations recognize this as well? And are they willing to invest, or will they be investing more in such training sessions for the pre-sales people out there?
Definitely, I see that trend shifting into the right directions because as we evolve, we need those skills and help pre-sales to develop both the technical as well as the soft skills. If your company is not investing in it, maybe you can ask your leaders to give you some allowance to get to Udemy or Coursera, some other courses where you can just at least learn the theory. And as I mentioned earlier, and start practicing and shadowing in the field by looking at different tenured SCs or the SCs in your region.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rishika. Kylie, in what Rishika has just mentioned, obviously certifications, courses play a big role in this. How often are you finding yourself reaching out, finishing a certification, finishing a course? How relevant or how reach are you in that regards?
Kylie, you're again on mute.
I promised I was going to keep it on, but I then got scared that I might make noises when I was having a drink or something. So how rich am I in terms of the formal and structured learning and offered? Really almost overwhelmed with the amount that is available for us to tap into, and it's difficult to balance that actually against the commitments with our prospects. The good thing with technology, as we've said, moving along, is that a lot of these opportunities are recorded. So if you aren't in the position to attend them live, you often have the ability to tap in on a as you can mode and even consume it in smaller chunks for you. And I really am privileged that we have that dedicated function within our organization. And obviously Ruchika is here representing the Japan Asia Pacific region of that enablement team for us. And I guess I would just say, rich, I'm beyond rich. I'm Jeff Bezos rich, right? I'm crazy rich with the availability of the training. But maybe just a perspective here is, I think we owe it to ourselves to book training in that we know we really need and should be consuming, and honor it as much as we would a demonstration, as much as we would with any other task that is opportunity related. I think we should really promise ourselves to do that. So that's just my 2 cents there.
And Kylie, you mentioned you're overwhelmed, which is normal. You get overwhelmed because there's a lot of training everywhere, every nook and corner. Every now and then I'll come into another training that I need to do that's been flagged that I need to do as part of my learning and trainings. How do you achieve a good work-life balance in pre-sales? Because obviously there's a lot to do all the time. There's never enough that you can do because, that's your goal. So how do you achieve that?
Prioritization. So you need to figure out what's going to make the most impact. What do you really need to focus on? And don't forget yourself in that process. The other thing that I think we often forget is that working harder doesn't always achieve the right outcomes. Sometimes we need to take a step back, and you need to start thinking about ways to work smarter. Why is this taking me so long? Why is this not repeatable? How are you going to get scale on that? For example, now, if you're just starting out, things will take a lot longer because you're learning everything for the first time. But I think once you've got a little bit of tenure, you can start to see patterns emerge, and it becomes easier. But yeah, for me, it's prioritization and to try and think about ways to do things in a smarter way, not just more time spent on them.
Thank you so much, Kylie. Really appreciate it. Will, one last one for you before one other question for the board. For Will specifically, I'll just ask you this question. There's been a few redundancies in the industry lately. We've seen it all over the news. What do you recommend to get back on track dealing with the impact?
Yeah, actually, when you asked me the question of what are some of the biggest challenges pre-sales managers face today, I mentioned obviously the hybrid workforce and some of the benefits and some of the challenges it brings. But the other element I thought of was obviously all the uncertainty in the tech sector. There's a significant amount of it. I've just had some friends actually at another company recently impacted this week, and so I think it's important as a manager to be very aware of that, and that your team, your peers are probably thinking, are hearing this news daily and are very mindful of it, as well as the fact that, we talk about macro pressures, cost of living and so forth. And, I look after a team that are people that have just bought houses, others that are probably at the other end of that and potentially had their mortgages paid off. So it's a diverse mix, but needless to say, some in the team might be more concerned than others based off tenure and various other things. So I think as a leader, it's important to be very mindful that although your people may not be coming to you with these concerns, that they most likely probably have them. And really, I think there's limited control that I think pre-sales leaders have. What we can control is where the focus is and just bringing our teams back to that focus and encouraging them to control what they can control and really just focusing on what we need to do today to be successful, and then also building out longer term goals. So I think there's no real answer to it, but it is absolutely something that's very much top of my mind, and I'm sure many others. And it's really just being aware of that and really just bringing focus to the team through these uncertain times.
Thank you, Will. True to your word, definitely transparent and honest, which all of us, I'm sure, appreciate on here. It's not an easy topic, but one that we should definitely discuss because it opens up conversation. Now, one last question, and this is for all of you. We'll start with you, Kylie, but I'll speak the question first. Actually, Rishika, what advice would you give to potential pre-sales engineers and managers who are looking to improve themselves and grow in their roles? Rishika, over to you first.
So there's two parts of it. To the pre-sales leaders is it's about, as Will mentioned, building that relationship team. I've been reading a book. It's called Radical Candor. As a manager, if you're not able to build that one-on-one relationship team and you're not open and transparent with your team members, you're actually not helping them by not giving them the right advice that they need when they are making that mistake. You want to give them feedback on the spot at the right time and be there for them. For the pre-sales, I would advise is if you want to build your pre-sales strength and come to the pre-sales roles, go to the pre-sales academy that David mentioned earlier. They give you a snippet on what does a pre-sales role look like. You should be able to understand what skills you need. Start from there, whether you would be able to have that continuous development and mindset, and then come towards and try it out as a pre-sales person. So I would recommend to start with that to understand what exactly pre-sales role is.
Perfect. Kylie, over to you.
Okay, so I'll approach this from the mindset of somebody who's been a pre-sales solution consultant for a little while, and you're looking to really fine tune and what sorts of things can you do to develop yourself and become better. And I think both Will and Ruchika have mentioned some of these in the past, and that is finding a good mentor, but also being a mentor. You learn so much when you have to break things down or coach another person, and you can also learn a lot from your mentees because they will approach things in really different ways that you perhaps haven't thought of before. And I find it really a two-way street. I have mentored some of our newer hires in my team, and that comes back around as well around seeking feedback. And Will, you talked about that in the context of making mistakes into learning opportunities and making the most out of that mistake. Just don't leave it in the past. But I think even when you're not making a mistake, having some sort of debrief, requesting direct feedback afterwards, it doesn't have to be from everybody, and make sure the feedback is candid. Keep that feedback culture one that is allowing candor. Don't just go, oh my gosh, you were brilliant. Think about it really and give honest feedback where some things could be polished. And yes, you can do that bad news sandwich. You were great at this, that could have been polished a bit more, and then you did this, which was awesome as well. That's always nice. And then I think another thing that I've learned also is supporting your colleagues in their demonstrations. So sometimes it might be supporting on chat, sometimes it might be just taking a little bit of their load off. But to see other people presenting the same material that you're asked to present in their way is such a learning exercise as well. It's just brilliant listening to the way that they deal with questions. And if possible, if you can be a support person for a senior leader or really tenured SC, you will learn so much just by being in the room with them about how they interact, how they think more strategically in interacting with customers as well, or prospects too. And I think if I was looking at, perhaps I won't talk about what my advice is if you want to become a pre-sales manager, but maybe what to me I appreciate about good pre-sales managers, or what do I like about the pre-sales managers that I've had. And I think, Will, you touched on this as well when you said you have to be willing to let go of the spotlight. You have to be willing to bask in the success of your teams. You are no longer the one out in front. The way that you shine is when your team is up there kicking goals for you and making you look good. And I think also it might be a little bit about being prepared to do all the non-glamorous things. And Will, maybe you can talk about this a bit, but you have to do a lot of resource management. So figuring out what's upcoming, what opportunities, who's got the right skill sets for that, who works well with others, who's got the strengths that are needed for that. That's not glamorous, but it's really, really necessary, and it helps when that's transparent too. So I think I spoke way too long about that, but there you go. There are my opinions for you.
Thank you so much, Kylie. And beautifully, all of you said. Will, last but not least, over to you.
I don't think I have much to add, really, Sharmyn. I think Kylie absolutely nailed it, and Rutika as well. So I really don't have much more to add. I think for me, it's check your ego barrier. So I know at times I've had to just kind of sit back and reflect and go, hold on, is this my ego talking? Am I trying to explain myself out of something when really know that I did make a mistake there, or I was wrong, or I could have done better, and it's my ego that's getting in the way? That's something that I continually force myself to check in many different scenarios, as it does get in the, I think it can get in the way. And the other piece is just blind spots. So know that we all have blind spots. I have many blind spots. The way to get around that is just to be always pushing for openness and being curious. So really being open-minded, radically open-minded, seeking feedback from many different people, being curious, and don't let your ego get in the way of that feedback. If it is somewhat critical, take it on board. Don't try to explain through it with your system one going, oh, hold on, I don't like this, and use your system two to go, oh, I'm going to explain why I did it that way. Just take it on board and see it from their perspective. So I think that's a big piece of it as well. Thanks, Sharmyn.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. And with that, I know it's 5 minutes over time, but as you can see, this conversation was very much needed. A lot of the snippets that I did have in writing from things that I learned was one, Kylie, areas of growth and importance differ. So make a decision, write it down, understand what growth paths look like for you and follow. One thing that I loved, Rashika, that you said is learn, continuous development role, have a coach, have a mentor. It's extremely important. There's so many people out there willing to give advice, wanting to be heard. Everyone's got a story, so why don't you find it and grow from that story as well? And Will, I love what you said about track your development. And I know Kylie also said this as well, but you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. I love that saying. Understand, what a meaningful relationship can look like. How can you grow in that meaningful relationship? Every client wants a human to interact with, be that human that they need. I really there's so many more incredible snippets that you all shared. I truly appreciate you all, incredible people joining here today. You guys are incredible for what you do. You're panelists because we all inspire and are inspired by you as well. I do want to say a massive thank you once again to David for coming in, assisting me, getting this meeting all together as well. And to all the participants here, there's a lot of questions that we weren't able to answer, but there'll be more webinars. We'll have more conversations. These are ideas for them as well. Please do add our wonderful panelists on LinkedIn, be part of the PreSales Collective. I'm sure you will enjoy it, and get ready ahead for our other webinars and meetings as well. Thank you so much, team.